Good morning, Ocean Tower 2 residents. So today we're here with a very special guest. I have our law firm, Siegfried Rivera, and one of their shareholders, Roberto Blanche, who has agreed so graciously to join us to talk about a very, very important topic. So COVID-19, we're here a year later, we're still talking about it. So many different things are going on. And I asked Siegfried Rivera to come on and just kind of give us an idea of where we are now and where we're headed. So Roberto, thank you so much for taking the time to be with me today.
Thank you very much, Esmeralda, for the invite and also to give us the opportunity to present such insight to your residents because it's shocking, as you pointed it out, that we're here 1 year later. It's in fact, I noticed that there are some events taking place this weekend. I was telling my wife earlier today that it's been exactly 1 year since we all went under our lockdown. So let's see where we stand now, right?
Exactly. So Roberto, now that we have you here, let's talk a little bit about yourself and your history, just so that our residents here and whoever gets to listen to this great video, they can know a little bit more about you.
Sure. Well, I've been, as the slide indicates, I've been with the firm since 2001. I am a shareholder with the firm. When I started working at the firm, my practice was focused on community association law, and that has been my niche ever since. So now, 20 years later, I continue to be a community association lawyer, continue to learn new things. I mean, who would have told us that we would be dealing with a pandemic? And so, became board certified in the practice of community association law, and have handled all aspects of legal representation for community associations. I say all with an asterisk because, as given your experience, we're always learning and coming to find out new things in our day-to-day life as community association stakeholders.
Definitely. And so I can tell you that for us, this has been a crazy time, and we have a variety of opinions on how to handle COVID-19, especially now that we have the vaccinations coming out. Some people in the state of Florida, they've already started getting it, quite a few people actually. And so I wanted to kind of get an idea of where your law firm kind of sees the trend going over the course of this next 6 months. What would be your forecast for what you see where you see things going?
If you go back to where things were when they started, people were nervous stepping out into the supermarket. People would put on gloves and all other type of protective equipment to go pump gas at the gas stations. There was a lot of uncertainty with regard to what this meant and how it was going to impact your day-to-day life. And obviously, throughout the past months, we've come to learn a lot. We've come to learn how beneficial masks are. When initially the conventional wisdom was masks don't make a difference, and then all of a sudden the professionals and the experts out there started, insisting that masks were so important. So the bottom line is we all start learning, and we learn and take our cues from the professionals, from the experts at the CDC and the World Health Organization and other epidemiologists and other scientists that tell us what realistically we should be concerned with and what we shouldn't be. Now, we also know in many of our communities that there have been many properties that opened up a lot of their facilities, and there hasn't been a major spike in the number of individuals that have been able to pinpoint their infection to those communities or to the opening of those facilities and communities. Could this be perhaps because some people have already gotten the virus? Could it be because of the vaccines? Could it be because we live in a different type of climate than in other places throughout the country or throughout the world? Nobody really knows, right? But what we do know is that we consider that in light of what we've been hearing, in light of the amount of people that are building up their own immunities because they've been infected previously or because they're having vaccines, we're expecting, based upon what we're hearing from all of the experts, that this is going to be less and less and less of an issue. I mean, it may be around forever, but
Mhm.
to what extent is it going to be a driving force in what we're doing and in whether or not certain facilities in our communities remain closed or become more open? That I believe we're going to start shifting more and more and more into what was the pre-pandemic norm, rather than what we've been living under, this protectionist type measures over the past year. So I think we're going to be shifting back to our pre-pandemic, though I want to underscore, I don't think it's going to be exactly the same
Right.
as what we had pre-pandemic.
So that brings up an interesting point, I guess, for me as a manager. In how do we enforce? Because you have two extremes, right? You have the homeowner who says, "I got the vaccination. I did what I was supposed to do. Uh, how, I'm not wearing a mask in the hallway and the common areas anymore." And then on the opposite end, you have the homeowner who says, COVID is this huge, serious thing. People need to take it seriously. I don't feel comfortable getting in an elevator with someone who hasn't worn a mask. And so it puts us between a rock and a hard place as a manager, because for most of us, there are no enforceable rules that we can actually require someone to wear a mask, and have it be a finable offense, other than just to say, please wear a mask. Um, how do we handle that? And what do you think rule enforcement should be or can be in a community environment when it comes to wearing masks, especially now with vaccinations taking place?
Sure. Well, what I think needs to be touched upon, because this is a multifaceted response, I guess, to the issue you raise. First of all, we take our cues again from society, from the professionals, from the experts. If they tell us wearing masks are or is advisable, is necessary, then we, at least to some extent, can, we being lawyers for community associations, property managers for community associations, board members for community associations, we can arm ourselves with enough of the ammunition to justify these rules, right?
Mhm.
A year and a half ago, if we would have had a rule that said you must wear a mask, I mean, people would look at you as if you were from some foreign planet. Whereas, come the COVID pandemic, now we are more welcoming societally to those types of restrictions. Now, that's not to suggest that there wasn't infectious disease before the onset of the COVID pandemic. So one could have made the case that we should always have been wearing masks, right? Because there was always a risk of being infected with some type of infectious disease. But it wasn't until we had this, COVID pandemic that we all said, wait a minute, we must wear masks. And now we societally look at it as something acceptable. Now, there's also that subset of our society that never embraced it. There's a subset of our society that will expect for this mask requirement to disappear. And of course, you're going to have some people, I would assume, that would feel more comfortable if we all continued wearing masks for the rest of our lives. And
Mhm.
so to what extent do we consider this to be, quote, reasonable? I think that as a condo board member, as a condo manager, as a condo lawyer, if the healthcare professionals are recommending the continued use of it, then I think we are in a better place to require it. If and to the extent there are emergency orders out there by mayors, by governors, by presidents, then I think we are in a better place to enforce the emergency rules that we all adopted, or using the emergency powers to adopt emergency rules. Because remember, a lot of what we did here in closing gymnasiums, in closing gyms or spas, or other types of facilities that didn't lend themselves to social distancing, these are facilities that unit owners have a right to use.
Mhm.
And it was only because we interpret the emergency powers and the ability for us to impose certain types of rules and restrictions vis-a-vis those emergency powers. It's only because we use that as a justification to adopt these rules that we can at least say that there's an arguable chance of defending it. And I say arguable because right now courts are only beginning to open up. For the last year, they were significantly handcuffed as to what they could do. We couldn't take many cases to court, but now they're beginning to open up. And so I do believe that as these rules continue in their enforcement, you might begin to start seeing owners challenging the rules, maybe, or maybe associations taking legal action to enforce them. And when those test cases come out, then we will begin to see the extent to which the courts will endorse what the associations either have done or continue to do vis-a-vis these types of rules and restrictions. But I think that the practical approach, I would assume, is to take the cues from the health experts. You already saw that the CDC last week came out with revised rules, right? Those
Mhm.
people that are all vaccinated, if you guys are going to hang out together and everybody's been vaccinated, you may be able to loosen up the mask wearing requirements. And that was straight from the CDC.
Mhm.
And so it would not surprise me if, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 months from now, those guidelines are even further revised so that in multi-dwelling unit situations, in situations of more dense population like gyms or theaters or other areas, they may give us better guidance as to whether or not masks could or should continue to be worn. Because if they continue to recommend them, then you will continue to have the ammunition with which to arm yourself. If they start saying we don't need to wear masks anymore as a society, then I think you're going to have a harder time pushing for those types of restrictions or rules.
Mhm. So I think you answered our next question, so we'll skip that because we kind of did a double there. That was a 2-for-1. How do you see the condo market changing, particularly in Florida, given COVID-19? And I guess from a broad perspective, not just because, or I should say, not because of COVID-19 alone, or not with respect to COVID-19 alone, but with respect to the condo market as a whole. Um, in terms of turnover, in terms of people coming in to Florida or leaving Florida because of that. Have you, as an attorney, seen a difference in how the condo market looks in Florida?
I mean, as an attorney, no. Right? I don't think when you ask that question as to whether I've seen it as an attorney, not really. As a member of society, reading the trends and the media reports, there are a significant number of stories that have been put out there about industry and professionals that have moved into Florida, and in particular into South Florida, um, uh, mostly from more dense, states or cities, more densely populated states or cities, or maybe states or cities that had cooler or colder climates because of the warmer and more humid climates that we have here. I don't know if it's because industry or companies have embraced this remote working concept, and so now individuals can work from their homes more readily, and they don't need to go into a metropolitan office like in Manhattan or in some other metropolitan areas. And so now, if they're going to be working out of their house, they might as well work out of a high rise, in Brickell or on the beach versus working in some type of cold climate. There are also, of course, other factors that drive people down here. So I do know that has coincided with the pandemic, and one only can ponder as to whether there's a direct correlation between one or the other. I do notice also that in a lot of buildings, and you might be able to attest to this more so than I, but in a lot of the buildings that I have gone into since the pandemic, you do begin to see a large number of I don't know if we want to call them improvements or modifications as to how we live. I have noticed a lot of no touch surfaces, the more of the use of sensors, or low touch points, right? Low touch points, more stations with the hand sanitizers and things like that. I have noticed that, and I do believe that many of those improvements, let's call, or amenities, I don't know what the right word may be, could likely be with us, for many years to come, if not forever. Even in what we're doing right now, the participation in these virtual meetings and these Zoom teleconference meetings, just the number of condo board meetings and condo members meetings that I have attended through this media has been so impressive. We are much more efficient in doing that. We're able to reach out to more people. More and more unit owners are participating in the process, or at least attending now, because they have the means by which to attend, whereas before they couldn't make it to a meeting. Now they can log on while they're cooking dinner and at least be privy to what's taking place at their condo board meeting. So this pandemic has given us a large number of new lessons learned, and I do think that they're being translated to I would say changes and improvements in the condo market. So I'm pleased at what I've been seeing for the most part. I'm also pleased, and I don't know how long-term of an issue this is going to be, but we were always concerned at the beginning of this pandemic with regard to the impact that this might have on associations' budgets and on association delinquencies. And I have not noticed, at least from our collections department in this past year, we have not noticed a material increase in the foreclosures for unpaid condominium association liens, which for the most part is a good thing on a number of reasons, the least of which is not the fact that we wouldn't be able to kick people out of their homes anyway, because the sheriff isn't executing writs of possession anyway, because the county mayor has restricted it. So, there are good things that we've seen and good changes, and hopefully the fact that we haven't seen an uptick in collections, God willing, is a trend that will continue, and that way, we may come out on the other end of this financially as condo associations, right? Financially, relatively unscathed. Obviously, we can't predict the future, but hopefully that's a good sign that we haven't seen too drastic of an increase, if at all, any increase in the percentage of collections.
I will say, and this is not legal related, but I think for homeowners to know the changes that I've seen as a manager. So number one, I think a lot of the snowbirds that would typically come down or go up north during this time have now just chosen, if they were here when the pandemic started, they're here now. And so we're seeing there's a larger occupancy rate, at least in Ocean Tower 2. So Ocean Tower 2 has historically been at a 40% capacity, and now it's at about a 65% capacity. And I think for a lot of buildings that have unit owners that are using this as a secondary home. We've seen a lot of that. Also, because of homeschooling, a lot of homeowners who would typically have their kids in school up north are now staying in Florida because they can homeschool their child, or their child is doing their schoolwork virtually. So with that said, there's been a lot of changes that we've had to make. The wear and tear to communities has been much greater because homeowners are working from home as well. So in a building that has 100% occupancy rate, the wear and tear to the pipes and appliances and things like that have increased exponentially. I mean, there I have seen a material change in how we're doing things. So I guess for homeowners, from the operational standpoint, and this is just my plea to all homeowners, is to be a little patient with the changes, because we are also, as managers, having to adapt to a new way of life for everyone. And I asked about this too. Obviously, I'm a native New Yorker. I just moved to Miami actually about 6 months before the pandemic hit. So most of my
talk about timing.
Perfect timing. Perfect timing. Trust me, I'm glad to be in Florida, because when I hear about some of the things going on up north, I feel privileged to be down here. And with that, I will say that many of my family and friends have told me that they intend and are already beginning the move down to Florida, and in particular South Florida, because we have that urban environment that they're used to up north. So this is just something to keep in mind, I guess, for all homeowners who are involved, who are in condo and community living, just to be understanding of the fact that we are that things are changing, that we are evolving as a society, and you know, there's just movement. There's a lot of movement happening. There's a lot of people working from home, and so that's causing us, you know, where we were maybe overstaffed before, we may be understaffed now for the amount of people who are residing within the community and are here all day.
Right.
With that, I want to thank you so much, Roberto. And Stephanie told me that you would consider doing this again every couple of weeks or every couple of months. So thank you so much. I will definitely take you guys up on that and come with different questions and different topics. I think that it's so important. You know, one of the things I hear consistently as a property manager is that homeowners feel like they don't know what's going on, that they don't have full transparency. And sometimes I think there are things that they don't understand from a legal perspective. And so having someone like you with so much knowledge and your law firm, Siegfried Rivera, having so much knowledge of what's going on in the condo market, it's a real advantage to be able to sit down and chat with you. So I really appreciate it. Oh, and I have to say, on behalf of KW, not to plug them, but on behalf of KW too, I'm sure that they would be ecstatic that you were doing this with me today. So thank you on behalf of them as well.
Absolutely, Esmeralda. It is a pleasure. You can always count on our support and our willingness to assist and participate. You know, and to the extent that you or your residents or owners have any questions going forward, we could definitely take them up at a future session or even in the interim between sessions. So looking forward to that, and looking forward to continuing this great relationship that we have with the Ocean Tower 2, with KW, and of course our firm. So I appreciate it. Great spending this time with you.
Thank you. Thank you.